She carried the weight of legacy like it was her birthright, even when the world said she didn't belong. They laughed a moment she walked in. You could hear it, quiet but sharp, like paper cuts in the silence. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. She adjusted Zion on her hip, felt the weight of his tiny head rest against her collarbone, and didn't flinch. One hand on the diaper bag, the other gripping a crumpled folder with evidence so dangerous it made millionaires nervous. From the bench, Beatrice Hale watched her with the faintest curl in her lip. That same look she gave to help so many people vanish with money and manners. Her diamond earrings caught the courtroom lights. Her lawyer leaned in and whispered something, and she nodded without taking her eyes off Alisha. There was no welcome in the air, no warmth, no neutrality. Just eyes, dozens of them, watching a black woman carry a baby into a courtroom that wasn't built for her, daring to claim a legacy they didn't believe she deserved. Alicia didn't sit. She didn't wait for the clerk to announce the hearing. She walked straight down the aisle like it was a runway, and she had nothing to hide. Because Judge Carter, a man who seemed carved from stone and cigar smoke, raised an eyebrow. "Ms. Shelley, is it? You're not represented?" Alicia's voice was soft, but her tone was the opposite. "That's right. I'm here on behalf of my son, Zion Shelley, legal heir of Gregory Hale." You could hear a pin drop, and then the slow, calculated chuckle of Spencer Klein, attorney to the Hale estate. He stood, smooth as ice, and gave the judge a bow that said he'd won this before it started. "Your Honor, this woman has no standing. The will clearly names the Hale Foundation as the sole beneficiary. There was no marriage, no record of paternity, no recognition of the child." Beatrice dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief, as if the mention of her dead son was too much. But Alisha had seen those same eyes dry as bone at the funeral. Not one tear for the man she now claimed to mourn. Judge Carter tapped his gavel. "Mr. Klein, you'll get your turn. Shelley, you may proceed. You will need to prove paternity and the legitimacy of your son's claim." Alisha didn't speak. Not yet. She opened the folder. One by one she pulled out what nobody in that room expected her to have. A sealed envelope with Gregory's handwriting. A birth certificate. A time-stamped DNA test notarized by a private lab. A handwritten will, unsigned but verified by handwriting analysis and time-stamped 2 weeks before Gregory's death. The crowd murmured. Klein's smirk twitched. Beatrice looked like she'd swallowed something bitter. Alisha finally stepped forward. "Gregory Hale and I were together for 5 years. I never asked for his money, but he knew about Zion. He loved Zion, and when he got sick, he made plans. You erased me from the obituary. You deleted our photos online. But truth doesn't vanish just because it's inconvenient." Judge Carter looked over the documents. His expression didn't change, but he took a longer pause than anyone expected. "These will be entered into the record. We'll reconvene after verification. Miss Shelley, you may be seated." She didn't move to sit. "Respectfully, Your Honor, I'd like to say one more thing." The judge gave a small nod. Alisha looked at the gallery. She looked at the woman who called her a mistake during Gregory's wake. She looked at the man who doctored the estate's documents and thought a college dropout from Detroit wouldn't notice. "I came here today so my son won't have to fight the way I did. You don't have to like me. You don't have to believe me. But this baby is Gregory Hale's only child, and when he grows up he will know that his mother never ran. She walked into this room and made the truth louder than your lies." Gasps. Not from the media, who were already texting headlines, but from the Hales themselves, who for the first time looked worried. Not angry, not smug. Worried. Spencer Klein cleared his throat, his voice shakier now. We'll be filing a motion to dismiss on the basis of objection, Alisha said. Klein blinked. You don't even have a law degree. I object, she repeated, her voice unshaken, because I'm tired of watching you speak over me. Judge Carter stared at her for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he nodded. Sustained. And just like that, the room shifted. Not with noise, not with applause, but with something deeper. Respect. Or maybe fear. Because the woman they underestimated didn't come to beg. She came to win. And she wasn't done yet. There were names on the wall outside the courtroom. Names of benefactors, donors, judges, long dead. Alisha passed them slowly during the recess, each one staring down like a silent gatekeeper of legacy and class. She had no name up there, but she carried one in her arms, and that was enough. Zion slept against her chest, soft breath rising and falling like waves. He didn't know he'd just been declared the possible heir to a $500 million 0-cents empire. He didn't know the room they'd just walked out of was packed with people who wished he'd never been born. Miss Shelley? A voice called behind her. Familiar, nasal, smug. Spencer Klein. He jogged a little to catch up to her, his expensive shoes clicking sharply on the marble floor. No hard feelings, right? He said, like this was a post-game wrap-up and they were both just players. You certainly made quite the entrance. Strong, dramatic, just a little misguided. She didn't answer, just kept walking. You know this isn't going to end with a judge's gavel, he went on, trying to keep the conversation light, but his breathing had quickened. The Hales have resources, teams. You really want to drag your kid through a public war? She stopped. Zion stirred, yawned, then nestled back into her shoulder. Alisha turned slowly to face him. You mean like how your team dragged me through private hell after Gregory died? When I couldn't even bury him properly because Beatrice was too busy rewriting history? Klein's lips pursed. That's not entirely fair. There were concerns. Concerns, she echoed, her voice cool as glass. Because I didn't go to Harvard? Because my hair didn't come from a salon in Beverly Hills? Because my baby was born on the wrong side of the press release? You're emotional. I get it, he said. But let's be practical. You could walk away right now. We'd offer something. Quiet settlement. Maybe even a trust. Alisha blinked slowly. Then she smiled. The kind of smile that made men like Spencer sweat in $1,000 suits. You already know I'm not walking away. That's why you followed me out here. She turned again and kept walking. He didn't follow this time. Back in the hallway, her phone buzzed. 2 missed calls. One from her mother, one from a blocked number she knew belonged to Beatrice's personal assistant. A woman who once called Zion a disruption. She ignored both. Instead, she ducked into the family restroom, set Zion down on the cushioned bench, pulled out a bottle, and fed him while sitting on the edge of the sink counter. He latched, hungry and oblivious to the court orders and DNA swabs. Alisha stared at him, her jaw clenched. He had Gregory's nose, the same little freckle under his right eye, and nobody could take that away from him. She remembered the night Gregory told her about his diagnosis. It was raining. Not dramatically, no thunder, no cinematic storm. Just soft, constant rain tapping the window of their 1-bedroom apartment. He didn't cry, but she did, because he already knew what was coming, and all he wanted to talk about was making sure Zion was protected. If they try to erase you, he had whispered, don't let them. Promise me, Alisha, don't let them. She'd nodded, not realizing back then just how cruel people could be once money entered the room. Zion gurgled and kicked gently in her lap. She kissed his forehead, adjusted his onesie, then stood. As she walked out of the restroom, a camera flashed. Paparazzi. Beatrice must have tipped them off. Outside the courthouse, a small group of reporters was forming. One shouted a question. "Alisha, is it true you met Gregory at a club? Did you ever live together?" Another, "Is the baby even his? Where's the marriage certificate?" The questions felt like darts, sharp, personal. She didn't flinch, just kept walking. But inside, something tightened. Not fear, not yet. Just the dull ache of knowing the world still expected her to bow and break. Inside the courtroom again, the bailiff called order. Judge Carter returned, less stony now, as if the weight of the evidence had started to crack his shell. "We've received preliminary verification of the documents submitted by Ms. Shelley," he said. "While final validation is pending, they appear, on initial review, to be legitimate." Spencer Klein stood quickly. "We'd like to contest the submission of the handwritten will on grounds of chain of custody compromise. There is no notarization, no witness signature." Alisha cut in. "There is also a digital backup stored in Gregory's private email. I have login credentials. I can provide metadata and server timestamps." Spencer looked at her like she'd just grown wings. Beatrice's hand clenched the edge of the table. The judge lifted a brow. "You accessed his email?" "I was listed as his emergency contact. He gave me the password. I haven't touched a thing. I knew one day this fight would come. So I kept everything frozen in place." Silence. Thick. The kind of silence that comes before glass shatters. "Then we'll subpoena the account," the judge said. "Until then, the will remains on record." Beatrice stood, sudden and slow. She stepped forward, a dramatic pause in every footstep. "Your Honor," she said, voice trembling just enough to sound human, "this woman, this stranger, has tainted my son's memory. She is a manipulator. She was never part of our family." Alisha didn't move. Beatrice looked down at Zion, then back up. They were prepared to offer a generous settlement in exchange for withdrawal of all claims. The courtroom tensed. Everyone looked at Alisha. She rose to her feet slowly, then lifted her son in her arms. "I'm not here for hush money," she said, her voice cutting like a razor. "I'm here so that my son doesn't grow up watching the world call him a lie." The judge leaned back in his chair. Then he did something no one expected. He smiled, slightly, and banged the gavel. "We'll reconvene next week for evidentiary hearing. Until then, Miss Shelley, Mr. Klein, prepare your cases." We are now in recess. The gavel echoed like thunder through the marble hall. Outside, the cameras were waiting, but so was something else. Alisha Shelley sat on the bench outside the courthouse, elbows on her knees, fingers threaded tight. Her back ached. Zion was heavier than he looked. Her mind wandered through the events of the last week like footsteps in a fog. Every sound, every word from that courtroom kept replaying on a loop. But it wasn't the judge's voice she heard. It was Beatrice's. "She was never part of our family, honey, 'cause Gregory once told her, 'You're the only part that feels real.'" A woman walked by, gave her a once-over, then looked away. People did that a lot now. Some recognized her from the news, the woman with the baby and the billionaire's last name. Others just sensed it, like animals sense weather, that edge of scandal, the quiet before a storm breaks loose. Zion slept in the stroller, his curls damp from the heat. He didn't understand custody hearings, asset freezes, or legacy wars. He just wanted his next bottle and someone to hum him to sleep. That simplicity grounded her, gave her oxygen when the walls felt too close. A notification buzzed on her phone. An email from a third-party digital forensics lab. Metadata confirms that the email draft of the will was written and saved under Gregory Hale's account 2 weeks prior to his death. IP matches his home address. Alisha closed her eyes, breathing slow and deep. It was a win, but it wouldn't be enough. Not yet. She stood, stretched, then reached into her tote bag and pulled out the original handwritten letter Gregory had left her, the one he wrote on that hideous yellow legal pad he always used when he was thinking too hard. The ink had faded slightly, but the words hadn't. Alisha, if you're reading this, it means they're already making you prove what we both knew. I don't trust them. Not with you, and especially not with Zion. He's mine. Let the world fight over paper, but you carry the truth. She was still staring at it when a shadow fell across the page. Spencer Klein. No blazer this time, no smug smile. He sat beside her like they were two old friends. I read the metadata report too, he said quietly. You hacked my inbox now? She asked, not even looking at him. He chuckled once, but it didn't last. No, Beatrice did. Then she forwarded it to me with the subject line, "Make this disappear." Now she looked. Are you telling me this out of guilt? No, he said. I'm telling you because for the first time in my career, I don't want to win. Alisha blinked. She waited for the catch, but there was no punchline. I looked into the birth records, he said. Hospitals, photos, even found a pediatrician's note. Gregory was listed as the father. He wasn't hiding it, not really. He just didn't tell his mother. She wouldn't have listened, Alisha muttered. She wouldn't have let him live, he replied. Not the way he wanted. She'd have threatened to cut him off, rewrite the trust, freeze his shares. Alisha leaned back on the bench, letting the sun hit her face. So what now? You switching sides? I'm not sure yet, he said, but off the record, the board is nervous. They don't care about bloodlines, they care about optics. The news is framing you like David versus Goliath. The people love it. A bitter smile curled on her lips. They love it until I win. Then they'll call it exploitation. You might be surprised, he said, rising. You have more leverage than you think. He walked off, and for the first time since the fight started, she believed him. That evening she drove Zion to Gregory's old penthouse, now locked up, sealed with a state probate tape like it was a crime scene. She parked across the street and sat there a long time. The city skyline was purple with dusk, shadows stretching long like memories. She'd lived here once. Not for long, maybe 7 months, but they'd made it feel like home. He used to cook her breakfast, even when she told him not to, burned eggs, over-salted bacon. He'd kiss her with coffee breath and say, I was rich before I met you. Now I'm alive. She could still hear him sometimes in the silence between Zion's breaths. She took out her phone, opened her audio notes, hit record. If I don't make it through this, she whispered, I want him to know I fought for him. Every second, every room, every stare from people who thought I didn't belong. Her eyes welled, but she didn't cry. I want him to know his father loved him. Not just in private, not just behind closed doors, but enough to give him a name, and enough to trust me with the truth. She ended the recording, saved it, then drove home. The next morning, the courtroom was different. Tense, on edge. Beatrice sat straighter than usual, fingers clutching a copy of the New York Ledger. The front page headline read, Alisha Shelley, the woman who made billionaires blink. Judge Carter shuffled through a new stack of paperwork. We have several new exhibits, he said, including verified metadata from Mr. Hale's personal email, financial transfers to Ms. Shelley during her pregnancy, and a record of an unsent message to Mr. Klein dated 6 days before the decedent's death. Spencer shifted in his seat. The judge continued. In this message, Mr. Hale asked that a clause be added to his trust confirming a custodial account in the name of Zion Shelley. This email was never sent, but it was saved, drafted, titled, in case they try anything. Beatrice's knuckles turned white. Judge Carter looked up. "Ms. Shelley, do you have any comments before we proceed?" Alisha stood. "I have one question, Your Honor," she said. "Do you believe a man's voice matters after he dies?" The judge leaned forward. "His documented voice? Yes." "Then let's listen," she said. She pulled out a USB drive, plugged it into the court's monitor. The screen flickered to life. Video. Gregory sitting on the couch, one hand on her belly, the other holding his phone. "If anything happens to me," he said in the video, voice raspy but smiling, "just know I love you both. I want him to have everything I built. Not for the money, but because he's mine. And you, Alisha, you're stronger than all of them combined. Don't let them scare you." The room fell still. Not even the reporters typed. Then Zion babbled from Alisha's arms, one happy squeal, and the silence broke like glass. The courtroom didn't exhale for a full minute after the video ended. Judge Carter leaned back, elbows on the armrests, fingers steepled under his chin. Even he looked shaken, but not uncertain. There were no objections, no rebuttals, just the ghost of Gregory Hale, alive again on the courtroom monitor, declaring what the family tried so hard to erase, the truth. Zion squirmed in Alisha's lap. She adjusted him, kissed his cheek, and smoothed his curls. He giggled and reached for her necklace, utterly unaware that the world had just shifted under his tiny feet. Beatrice sat frozen, her jaw tight but trembling. The corners of her eyes twitched. For a moment it looked like she might speak, but when she opened her mouth, nothing came. Only the sound of her pride breaking in silence. Spencer Klein cleared his throat and stood, finally pulling at his tie like it had turned into a noose. "Your Honor, in light of the evidence—" The judge cut him off. "Mr. Klein, I've heard enough. Sit down." Spencer did. The judge turned to Alisha. "Ms. Shelley, what you've brought forth, the documentation, the video, the digital trail, it paints a picture that's clearer than any legal argument could, not just of paternity, but of intent, of legacy." He paused. "I've presided over a lot of inheritance cases. Most of them are about money, but this one's about something more." Alisha kept her eyes steady, though her chest thumped so hard it echoed in her ears. Judge Carter shifted his gaze toward Zion, then back to her. "It is the judgment of this court that the late Gregory Hale did intend for your son to inherit not only his name, but his estate, in full accordance with a modified trust. Effective immediately, Zion Shelley shall be recognized as the sole beneficiary of the Hale legacy." A quiet ripple moved through the courtroom. No one clapped. No one dared. Alisha sat still, arms wrapped protectively around her child, afraid that if she moved too fast, the moment would vanish. But then Zion smiled, and everything realigned. The gavel struck once, then again. Court adjourned. Outside, the world was waiting. The media, the lenses, the headlines already halfway written. But this time, Alisha didn't shield her face. She didn't flinch. She walked straight through them, baby on her hip, like she'd done it 1,000 times. A reporter shouted, "Do you have anything to say to the Hale family?" Alisha stopped. She didn't shout back. She just smiled. "My son will grow up knowing who he is. That's enough." And she kept walking. 2 weeks later, she stood in Gregory's penthouse again. Only now, it was Zion's. The locks had been changed, the portraits rehung. Beatrice's design tastes slowly replaced with warmth and color and softness. The house no longer felt like a museum. It felt like life again. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, Zion in her arms, both of them looking out over the city he would one day inherit. She thought about the last 2 years, about how many times she wanted to give up, about how grief had pressed so hard on her chest, she forgot what breathing felt like. And now, here they were. She walked Zion into the nursery, set him in the crib, His crib. He babbled up at her, tiny fingers gripping the rail, then releasing. He didn't cry. He didn't need to. He was home. There was a knock at the door. She checked the screen. It was Spencer. She opened it slowly. He had a plain envelope in his hand. No smile, just a look that said, "I know I owe you more than words." "This isn't legal," he said. "It's personal. From Beatrice." Alisha hesitated, then took it. Inside was a letter. "Alisha, I once told myself you weren't part of our family. I see now that I was wrong. You are. Whether I like it or not isn't the point. What matters is that you loved him. And he loved you. And that boy is ours too now." There was no apology, but it was something. Something human. Spencer turned to leave. Before he did, Alisha asked, "Why'd you stay on the case after the draft will came out?" He paused. "Because I needed to see someone win the right way." And then he was gone. The days that followed were quiet in the best ways. There were lawyers to sort out the estate, of course, trustees, advisors, publicists, trying to reframe the Heir Foundation under its new heir. But none of that mattered to Alisha. She took long walks with Zion through the park, laughed when he tried to eat leaves, read to him from old books Gregory used to dog-ear. She made space in the closet for memories that didn't hurt anymore. The world still whispered, still watched. But now, they watched a mother and her child building something stronger than scandal. Legacy, yes, but love, too. On Zion's first birthday, she took him to the graveyard where Gregory was buried. The headstone was still cold, still pristine. She set Zion down in the grass, beside the stone, and sat beside him. "We made it," she whispered. "They said we wouldn't. They tried to erase us." Zion reached for a nearby dandelion and pulled. Alisha smiled. "Your daddy would be proud of you," she said. He already was. The wind shifted slightly, and for a second, just one, she thought she felt Gregory's warmth in the air. Not haunting, just present. They sat there for a long while, mother and son. No cameras, no courtroom, no war left to fight. Just a future, wide open, theirs. And for the first time in a very long time, Alisha Shelley let herself cry. But not from pain, from peace.